It was right back to the United Wrestling Network, thankfully, and now we're doing great things and survived the pandemic and even ran during the pandemic. I mean, we continued to film. Obviously, we had to stop down production until it was safe, and we had to follow protocols, and everybody had to be tested. But we did episodes of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood um, with no live crowd, and then eventually the pay per view series Primetime Live, which had some phenomenal matches um, during the pandemic. NWA was part of it for a good run, so Nick Aldis defended the world title. I mean, we had the television title at the time change hands, and the Pope won that. We had the um, what was it, North American title changed hands, and so the NWA Women's title, Serena Deeb won it from Thunder Rosa on Primetime Live. So it was cool to get to call some NWA action again and big title changes that then had kind of ramifications elsewhere because then Serena Deeb took the title onto Dynamite and defended it there, as well as just some of the United Wrestling talent having some great matches on that. So that was a lot of fun and a unique challenge to call it with no crowd, no
I'm
doubt.
glad you brought up the pandemic because it shows what a pro you are. You have all the transitions done for me, so I don't have to struggle through them. Thank you. But the pandemic was obviously, even putting aside all the many real life issues that come with it, it took its toll on pro wrestling. What was it like for you as a commentator to call matches without a crowd? Is it dramatically different? Because obviously, as a performer, you're feeding off the crowd. When you're a commentator, I know a lot of times you're doing things in post, but you're still normally getting that crowd feedback. What was it like as a commentator dealing with that?
Yeah, and most of the stuff I do, if it's not live, it's live to tape. We don't do a whole lot in post, but it was interesting because you don't you don't have some of those just crutches that as a broadcaster you're used to of what an atmosphere. You can just feel the energy, listen to this place, they're going bananas, all those things. It's just not there. It's just a cavernous space, and it was a challenge, I think, more for the talent, in-ring talent, than for a broadcaster, because as a broadcaster you can just dive more into background and information, and okay, let's talk strategy and call it almost more like MMA or something, talk technique and strategy and break down every little thing and fill some of the dead air. You're not gonna lay out for this is awesome chant because there's no this is awesome chant, right? um I mean, some promotions did that and piped it in, right? But we didn't. So you'd fill some of that air, but you'd also lay out to let the talent be vocal, and it made the talent had to be more vocal and talk trash and get character over. Plus, the strike with no crowd, dude. Let me tell you, those chops are loud. The strikes really echo. So you'd kind of lay out for some of the strikes, but then just put over the force of the strikes on commentary. So the pacing was just different. But I got used to it, and just like I always found MMA during the pandemic was interesting too, where you could really hear the corners instructions because you're not having that crowd just bleeding over everything.
Mhm.
So, and you can hear the feet on the canvas. You can hear just all the little sounds. And so instead of like laying out for crowd, it was more laying out just so you didn't miss if the wrestlers are really communicating. Because and the reason I say it was, I think, more of a challenge for the in ring talent is a baby face. You can still come out and get on the turnbuckles, for your for
Yeah.
your beauty show, but there's no reaction. And like a comeback, you're not going to have the baby face doing this, and there's nothing there, no matter what you do. So they, I think they had to adjust on the fly more, and just versus there's no grandstanding to the crowd and looking for the reaction. It more just had to be reality based, and it had to be a fight.
That's interesting because there's also the aspect of when people are calling matches and calling spots in the ring and they're talking back and forth, and that's going to
Yes.
become a lot more noticeable. I mean, if you're John Cena, as great as he is, you could hear that on TV with 20,000 people in the crowd, but still, in general, it's normally hidden, and it seems like a lot more difficult to hide that. Is that something you would try to watch out for and try to cover for while you're doing
Yeah, and
commentary?
that's why too. Like if they ever got in there tight, we would cover that dead air and we'd be talking on commentary. But and then when we were filming just for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, we would go live to tape, and then I'm sure our editors probably had some moments where they had to cut around some stuff like that. But we didn't have that luxury when we were live for Primetime Live, and it was no audience. But somehow, the talent just had to work around it and be careful. And to their credit, I don't remember any like just glaring examples of it just being obvious.